rolling?
We're rolling.
Hello, this is Brandon and Rob Brown.
Rob Brown, Fantastic Realty.
I want to introduce to you a very close friend of mine and somebody that I've known and done business with for many, many years. He is, in my humble opinion, the smartest, most knowledgeable real estate agent that I have personally ever met.
I like the way that sounds.
I have done personally almost 1,000 real estate deals, and I have not yet experienced somebody as knowledgeable as Rob. So today we get the unique opportunity to interview Rob and learn some real detailed information about Mission Beach, which Rob is the largest real agent in all of Mission Beach. He's also been an owner for 15 years now. So he's not just an agent trying to sell, properties. He's also been an oceanfront owner for 15 years, and he's an obsessive compulsive on knowing every single detail. You have never seen somebody where it's important to know this much detail about anything. So that's what I like. So I'm going to start off by asking Rob a few questions. So tell me, Rob, how does one identify one property versus the other to get the best property? What makes one good and one not as good from each other?
Well, for Mission Beach specifically, the way you choose a property is, first off, you start by deciding, is it primarily for use as an investment, for cash flow, or is it for personal use? And most of the investors that I work with, they're either pure cash flow and appreciation investors, or they want some cash flow to offset their personal use. So if it's personal use, you're going to decide whether you want to be on the bayfront or the oceanfront, the price range. And then once you've determined those things, then you'll look for the best deal you can find that you qualify for in terms of financing and meeting your personal criteria. And if it's based on just pure investment metrics, then you're going to look at pro formas and get the best cap rate, cash flow, gross rents, and hopefully future upside in appreciation for the submarket that you're looking for, whether it's oceanfront, bayfront, core property, condo, single family, duplex, or commercial apartment building, 5+ units.
All right, so Rob's a really humble guy, but I'm going to take an opportunity to show off here for a second. And I have not prepared this question for Rob. I have not told him. I can guarantee you that I'm about to ask this. I'm going to put him right on the spot. I can know his heart's probably already beating, his anxiety's probably already high, but I'm going to put him right on the spot with a question that I have absolutely no idea how he's going to answer it. But if any of you guys have ever dealt with a real estate agent, you can ask him questions like this, and I guarantee you, you will not get the response that we're going to get. And so I'm going to go out and shoot for it. Rob, give me some history of Mission Beach. Every agent can talk about, this property versus the bay and give you some basic metrics. Help me understand the history of this area.
So the history of Mission Beach kind of begins in the late 19th century, 1890s to 1910. There's a developer, Spreckles, who subdivided the land, the Mission Beach Peninsula. It starts in from PB and it goes towards Ocean Beach. The two neighborhoods that bookend Mission Beach are Pacific Beach, and it goes from Mission Bay Drive along the east side of Mission Bay all the way over to the peninsula in South Mission, and then all the way back up north to Pacific Beach Drive. And that would kind of be the Mission Beach neighborhood, all developed in the 1890s to 1910. They dredged the bay and created the largest man-made, water aquatic center for boating, sailing, water sports on the bay side of the peninsula. And on the ocean front, you've got the boardwalk. And there's a boardwalk that goes all around the whole thing. And to kind of, get attention onto their development, they were selling these oceanfront and bayfront lots for $500 for a lot.
I was just gonna ask you that. Go back to 1970s. You're sitting here. Just picture for a second. You're walking. Here's what you can help me understand. I was born in '84, so let's go back to, let's say, the '70s. So someone's in the 1970s. They're walking. They're cruising down Mission Beach, the boardwalk. They're looking around. How much could they have bought oceanfront property for? And what kind of a foresight would somebody have had to have to understand what was about to happen in this area?
So the 70s are an interesting time to look at any real estate market, because that's kind of when the hyperinflation occurred, when the US dollar got delinked from gold, and they did a lot of currency printing similar to what's happening now with the COVID-19 response from the Fed. But when you look at what prices were in the 70s, at a time when Mission Beach was maybe 60% developed and 40% would be vacant lots, you had maybe like 30% of the waterfront, oceanfront, and bayfront lots, and maybe 50-60% of the non-waterfront lots developed at that time. But prices shot up really dramatically from the late 60s to the mid 80s, and half of that's inflation, and the other half's appreciation. And also, the 70s and 80s were a time when real estate investment as an asset class, separate from the stock market or equities and bonds, also kind of came into its own. So you started to see more investors coming down here. But you would have been able to buy an oceanfront property back then for maybe 50 grand in the beginning of the 70s.
50 grand. So you're telling me I could have bought something on the water for 50 grand?
Absolutely. People thought you were crazy if you did back then. That was a high price.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So walk me through the kind of the mentality then back then. It's like you're looking at a lot, you're thinking 50 grand. How could anyone on earth not have looked at that and thought this was the biggest no-brainer? It's oceanfront property.
So part of the reason why that sounds so cheap is the inflation component, right? Because at that time, people's salaries were much lower. And the other part is that the Mission Beach didn't have the dynamic, gentrified, environment that it has today. It was kind of a sleepier beach town. It always had tourism and vacation rentals. But the explosion of the vacation rental industry, the tourism industry in San Diego, how much it's grown from the 70s until 2020. You're talking about 50 years of tourism growth in San Diego. San Diego went from maybe a top 50 city to now it's, I think, the number 8 city in the country, and Mission Beach and PB are the premier tourist-centric beach in the whole MSA. So that's part of what you're seeing, and the other part is just that inflation. The income growth that you're going to see on vacation rental assets is the growth of tourism and of the internet, and then the appreciation that you can see on the properties that maybe they've gone from 50 grand to 7 million, like the one I sold last week.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you now. Okay, so you sold a property last week for 7 million. The property that you sold for 7 million that was right on the water, that would have gone for what in the 70s?
So that was actually built by the family that sold it to my investor in 1972. It's a 4-story, 6-unit apartment building. It was the largest building in Mission Beach ever because it came in at 4 stories and 6 units right before the Coastal Commission and the city of San Diego set the 30-foot height limit in the coastal zone. And so there's a handful of buildings.
So he's grandfathered in.
Exactly.
Got it. So what was the height limit at that point?
There was no height limit. So, you could have built 20 stories there. It just didn't pencil out. It didn't even pencil to build 4 stories, but the guy just really wanted to do it and did it. And a year or so later, they did the 30-foot height limit. And so it was the only one that ever got built at that height.
Got it. What did you sell? What was that sale?
$7,450,000. I think
Wow.
the cost of him building it, he bought a teardown duplex in that location in the late 60s for 30 or 40 grand. And I think the cost of construction was another 50 or 60,000, and that would have been a 15-20% return on cash back at that time when he built it as 6 purpose-built vacation rentals, all 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot units for vacation rental.
So how would you compare? So why would someone go? Look, Mission Beach. There's Venice Beach. There's Newport Beach. Those are probably the 3 I can think of that are similar to Mission Beach, where there's life and biking and rollerblading on a boardwalk and that kind of a thing. So, how would you compare like Mission Beach to those other 2?
So Venice Beach used to be kind of a hippie, crime type area up until Snapchat came in there, maybe in 2014, and so the values there have went just bananas. But if you would have looked at the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, Venice Beach, although it was in LA, was not a desirable place to own real estate. And so a lot of the appreciation that's happened there has been since Snapchat came in and all the tech companies came in because they got priced out of Santa Monica, and you can't do development in Santa Monica and West LA. And then Newport's always been a high-end area. So when I started buying here in Mission Beach, I identified Mission Beach back in 04, 05 as a value-add opportunity, something similar to Newport. Even today, that building in Newport would sell for maybe $11 million, and we were able to buy it here in a larger MSA with greater tourism demand at 7.5. And so we think over the next decade or 2, it's going to neutralize and even out with the values, the advantage that Newport has.
Because you think more of that population is coming down here.
Right, because OC is a feeder market from LA, but it's not its own 3 million person MSA, and San Diego is a major world-class city, not as big as LA or San Francisco, but it's the third largest city in California, and it's the eighth largest in the country.
So we starting to see that happen at all yet? Because from my understanding, there was the president of Zoom bought a property recently right on the beach. Was that something that he would have maybe gone to these other markets? And recently we see some high-profile buyers now on the beach here.
Yes, I mean the president of Zoom bought a house for $9.9 million. It's the highest
Sorry to call you out.
sale ever. It wasn't me actually, but anyhow, I don't moonlight anymore at Zoom. But yeah, that was a pretty big sale. And then there's a handful of billionaires that are buying properties in Mission Beach. You would never seen that back in the 80s and 90s. One of them is a big developer out of Las Vegas, Ocean Pacific. That's the Mulaski group of companies. They did 150, $200 million worth of condo development in the last cycle, maybe from 2003 to 2008. And then the real estate recession kind of cut that off. And now they're starting to build again. They actually bid against us on the 6 unit. My big investor is a tech investor, and he just sees the value on the waterfront property in Mission Beach for long-term capital appreciation, preservation, and cash flow for a kind of trophy waterfront asset. You're not going to get that in other beachfront markets like you do in Mission Beach. And then, there's a number of other investors that are competing. Anytime a decent waterfront property goes on the market, it sells with multiple offers right away over the last 5 years. And, the 35 years before the last 5 years, it wasn't really like that. Properties would sit on the market sometimes for 6 months or a year before they would sell.
Okay. What do you see in the next 5 years?
So, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but I'd like to believe that the trajectory and the trend of the last 10 years is going to continue. Obviously, whenever the current expansion cycle in the economy hits the bottom, we're going to have a recession at some point when this tops off. Whenever the Fed policy of the printing of $10 trillion that's happened since March eases off, there should be a slowdown. I don't see a big crash like what happened in 2008 coming, but there should be some kind of moderate correction. And I think the next expansion after that is going to be
I feel like
huge.
I'm interviewing Ray Dalio.
I do like to follow his stuff.
I mean, I was trying to learn about Mission Beach, and now I'm learning about the world economy. Folks, we're getting a lot more than we bargained for.
It's funny.
Meet Rob Brown. So okay. So your thesis on that is more of a macro thesis. We got to see what the hell goes on with all of this.
Absolutely.
We got the coronavirus. We have the market all-time high. We got stocks. We got everything else. So let me ask you a question on that, because this is where I think people, and really everybody, is really the bottom line is no one can predict exactly what's going to happen in the future. Even Warren Buffett admits he can't admit exactly what's going to happen. So if Warren Buffett can't do it, no one can do it. So here's what I think is important. Let's talk about adding value to an asset. So you got properties in Mission Beach, and you're paying $7 million for an asset that's not going to create a return that is as sexy or as exciting as maybe something in a non-gentrified community, and now you have something on the beach, but you might have better appreciation, but it's hard to get income. So, why does an investor want to buy here, and how do you create value? So let me ask you, you got a unit that you can add a unit. Can you find something that you can go up a story? And then finally, what is it like to deal with the California Coastal Commission as it relates to making those changes on a property?
So the first point that you made is about cap rate of waterfront assets versus maybe buying a property in East County of San Diego or Las Vegas or some other market where you're going to get a higher cap rate. And the way to address that is the same way that you look at the PE ratio of stocks or what the yield is on bonds. Every asset that generates cash flow, that isn't a speculative asset like gold or commodity, is going to have two components to yield. You're going to have the income and then the appreciation. So for stocks, part of the return is dividend, and part of the return is capital appreciation, the stock going up in value. Same as for bonds. The price of the bond fluctuates. It'll go up and down with interest rates and quality of the credit of the company issuing the bonds. And then you have the actual bond payment. And for real estate, you've got the rents, and then you've got the appreciation or lack thereof, or property going down in value like it did in 08. And the reason why people accept a lower cap rate on the waterfront is historically the appreciation has been guaranteed. It's been shooting straight up at 5 to 7% annual appreciation for maybe 75 years now, so substantially in excess of the 2 to 3% inflation rate we've experienced the last 20 years. And you can still get a decent cap rate of 4.5 to 5.5%. That 6-unit we bought, after we put in 500,000 or $1 million into remodeling those units, the people we were competing against were going to try and sell those off as condos. It comes with white papers, for anywhere from 2.5 to 2.8 million. I sold my own condo last week for 2.8 million. Bought it for 2.1 a couple years ago. And so if you look at an investment like that, you might say, well, why did I accept a 4.5% cap rate when I could have gone to North Park and bought 10 units and gotten a 6% cap rate or 5.5% if you can even get that. And the reason why is you're not going to have that $750,000 net capital gain that I had without having to do much to the property like you do with waterfront property. When the economy is going up, oceanfront property will appreciate greater than any market other than a really gentrifying market where ultra high net worth investors are not going to want to deal with the low tenant quality that you have going into a slum type market, or if you go buy an El Cajon or a bad part of Las Vegas just to chase yield. Somebody who has $1 billion and they have to place hundreds of millions of dollars in equity to achieve their real estate asset allocation, they don't want to deal with all the drama that comes with managing low-end apartments. They just want to put their money somewhere safe where they know it's going to go up in value over a 20, 30-year hold, and they know you can afford
But how does
good
someone
property
add?
management.
But, I mean, even wealthy people want to add value.
So
to
the way
their
you add
assets.
value to that deal is by remodeling the units.
Okay.
They're going to be worth $300,000 or $400,000 a door more, and by remodeling units, you'll get higher cash flow. So right now, maybe it's a 4 cap or 3.8, but we're done with the remodel. It's going to be a 5.5% net yield, fully managed. That's after management and everything.
Does new development though make sense on these units? I see new development.
It does to sell.
To add units.
In this case, you can't really add units to much in Mission Beach unless it's a severely underutilized lot, because Mission Beach has a precise plan. I've actually served on the precise planning board. I've served on the town council as well, and so I know a lot about those things. And some properties you can add a unit or add square footage, but most of them are maxed out these days. That one was.
So that gives me okay. So let's talk about politics, because this is something that I don't see people talking about much on anything real estate videos or anything real estate related or any education related to real estate that I've ever seen that I see online. But the bottom line is, I've investing in real estate since I was 18 years old. Rob has been doing the same. I have been affected by politics for good and for bad since that time, from a local, state, and a federal level. So for the purposes of this particular video, let's focus on Mission Beach. What has been the most controversial topic? I know vacation rentals obviously are the obvious, elephant in the room. That's been really super controversial. What's been sort of the history behind what has kept them, specifically, by the way, in Mission Beach? There's other areas where they actually have been banned, but what I've noticed at Mission Beach, it just seems like they can't get rid of them. Why?
So San Diego is working to regulate vacation rentals. They've been trying for 10 years. For Mission Beach, they're so much a part of the DNA and of the local economy that if they did an outright ban on vacation rentals, maybe 50, 60% of the local businesses that serve tourists would go out of business. You'd see a lot of real estate trading, even if it's not for financial distress. A lot of people own these properties for personal use. Maybe 80% of owners own it for personal use, and they're going to stay there with their family 1 or 2 months out of the year, split up, and they just want the tax benefits of owning it instead of renting it, and the long-term appreciation. Maybe they plan to retire there. So even right now, the current pending...
Hold on, you're telling me it's 80% owner-occupied in Mission Beach?
No, it's 80% people using the property part-time themselves.
Part-time owner-occupied.
With offset by vacation rental.
Got it. So the lesson to be learned from hearing from you is that the majority of people are renting their properties.
Right.
What percentage of actual people are leasing their properties in Mission Beach?
Somewhere from 50 to 70, 80%. Depends on who you ask. The numbers are kind of all over the place on that because not everyone's paying the TOT tax. We can see who has a non-owner occupied tax mailing address, but also a lot of these high net worth people don't receive their mail at the property.
Okay, so we can identify that particular reason as the reason why it just continues to stay in, and the ordinance continues to stay strong. We have politicians on both sides of the favor. I've seen ones that have been not what you want if you're an owner of real estate. Trying not to be political on this, but I've seen it and it doesn't get voted.
So we just had the election and Todd Gloria won for mayor. He's the one that wants a fair compromise with reasonable regulations for vacation rentals. Barbara Bree lost. She was the one that wanted to ban all vacation rentals, said they're illegal. I've spoken with land use attorneys for multiple clients that say, if you've been doing a vacation rental with a license and paying tax for many years, you're not going to be able to just have that taken away from you at the drop of a hat. But that remains to be seen. I personally believe, and the town council supports, and the Precise Planning Board supports, there'll be regular regulations for Mission Beach vacation rentals that will permissively allow them. They're probably not going to allow one investor to buy all of them, but people are going to continue to be able to own 1, 2, or 3 vacation rentals per social security number, or 1, 2, or 3 per LLC. I think with an 80% certainty, although who knows, we'll see soon.
All right, so Rob, I personally live in Pacific Beach. By the way, Rob lives in Pacific Beach. He has a house in Mission Beach. By the way, it's on the water. It's beautiful. He just sold it, actually, but that's a separate topic. I was trying to convince him to live there forever, but he wants to vacation rental it. Can't blame him. This is what's always bothered me. You go through Mission Beach, and by the way, it's no different in Venice, right? And you look at the pizza parlor, and you look at some of the retail shops, and you're thinking, like, we're beachfront. We're on the water. Why on earth can't the community rezone or attract investment on some of these retail properties? Like, and I know your brain's probably stirring because you thought about this for 20 years, but like specifically the corner next to the roller coaster, okay? It's a piece of shit, okay? The whole street sucks. I mean, we're next to the freaking ocean, okay? In one of the coolest spots, probably the coolest spot I've ever seen in my whole life. I've traveled quite a bit. I've never seen anything quite like this corner. It is so lively. There's so many people. Talk about walking traffic, which I know is important for retail. And you've got crappy retail on this whole street. That blows my mind. Please explain to me why we can't get nice retail over there.
So the reason why that particular strip of retail across from Belmont Park, where the roller coaster is, on Ventura Place, isn't redeveloped. It took a long time just to get the Starbucks in on the northeast corner, and that's because of Prop 13. The properties you're talking about haven't traded since the 80s. Their property taxes are probably $2,000 or $3,000 a year. If they remodeled it and upgraded,
those are small retail centers, correct?
That's right. Okay. And so if they upgraded those properties, they'd be reassessed over a certain level of investment, and then the property tax would go from $1,500 to $3,000.
Isn't Prop 13, we're talking about single-family residences?
No. So the ballot measure that just failed was going to create a separate property tax
for commercial and
assessment
industrial.
For commercial. It failed.
Correct.
So all property is still under Prop 13.
Right.
It was a kind of overwhelming defeat. So I don't think they're going to try again soon.
So that brings these commercial properties. Oh, so now they're still on Prop 13 since Prop 15 just failed. Which, by the way, folks, Prop 15 was raising property taxes to today's value on industrial.
Then those would get redeveloped. They probably trade.
Then those would get redeveloped and trade. But because they're on Prop 13, we have owners that have almost no tax base because they've owned them for so long. And no debt. But why don't they? Okay, no debt. But why not just fix them up and raise the rents and attract?
If they do that, the property tax would go from $2,000 a year to $36,000.
So they can't fix up the properties without going through the city and reassessing the properties.
And the city doesn't want to let you redo it without raising the taxes. They want the taxes raised, and so the properties get really dilapidated and run down. They can do minor repairs, but you don't need to do minor repairs.
You see why it matters who you vote for, folks? It's just that simple. What you vote for, what props are on the ballot. You're like, who cares? It doesn't affect my life. I'm sorry, no offense, Mom, but my mom said this to me last night. Your life will be the same. It's just not true. It's just not true. I mean, think about that. So I have to walk by a piece of crap. I mean, I love this spot, by the way. I'm super passionate. I'm there all the time. I love it. It's beautiful. It's the most amazing spot. So I need to literally walk by this spot and look at crappy places because an owner's been sitting on something for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever the actual number is. And sucks. So that's what happens, and that's by the way, it's also a lesson to be learned though, because if you can follow these political trends, you can help understand what actually makes real estate rise. I mean, people don't talk about that enough, but it's really a big deal. If you can understand and follow, let me just put it this way, so I don't get off track. But if you can understand any real estate market, what's going, if you want to buy in any real estate market, you're absolutely insane if you don't know what's going on politically. Nuts. Because it vastly affects what's going on in real estate. We just learned from Rob what what the political environment has been, it does make sense to me now why, number one, people want to keep their tax base. They've had it forever. Can't fix up the properties, so now it lacks investment. The city doesn't get their piece of the pie, so they keep it the same. What would you prefer? Okay, let me ask you this, Rob. If you were the mayor of Pacific Beach, and you did not have, this would be a really I know Rob.
Let's call it the king.
The
That's
king
better.
of Mission Beach.
The king
Okay.
of Mission
This
Beach.
is the king of Mission Beach. Okay, this is gonna be a tough question for Rob. I know this is gonna be a tough question for you to answer. Coming from try to be non-biased when you answer this. I know that's gonna be really tough.
Not easy.
But non-biased, if you were the king of Mission Beach, which actually, to be honest with you, you kind of are the king. I mean, you sold all the real estate. Everyone calls through you. Every sale goes through you. Create a monopoly, so I feel like you're the king. But whatever. That's just me fluffing.
We gotta do more of these videos. I like
Right.
this.
This is me fluffing your ego. But how can you make Mission Beach better? What's it going to take to make it a better place?
The way you would make Mission Beach better is to create a reliable set regulations for vacation rentals, so there's no uncertainty. Then there'll be a lot more investment in the properties, fixing them up. You need to come up with some way to remodel and upgrade properties without having the property tax basis go up, so that those properties you're talking about that are dilapidated will get redone without concern for losing the tax base. Maybe say, oh, if you do the uses we want and you do X, Y, Z, your property tax is not going to go from $2,000 a year to $30,000. Maybe they'll go from $2,000 a year to $8,000, and then your rent can go from $6,000 a month to $20,000 a month, and it makes sense for everybody. The community wins, the landlord wins, the city wins, they get more taxes, everybody wins. That's the solution there.
Awesome. If you guys like the video, please press the like button. Subscribe.
Yeah, smash that like button.
Subscribe. Again, this is Rob Brown, Fantastic Realty. You can choose another agent. Do it. But you'd be nuts. Why would you? The seller pays for it. Why would you choose another agent? Rob Brown, top agent at Mission Beach. He will continue to be also one of my best friends in the world.
Brandon, you're the man. Thanks so much. This is my first YouTube video.
Thank you,
So
guys.
look forward to doing more soon.
Talk soon. It's pretty good. It's pretty informational.